Good evening, beautiful televiewers of DBS Television. It is a pleasure having you tonight again for another edition of Viewpoint on DBS Television. Divided into two parts, you have the yes or no question and you have the debate with our guests with us to give you their point of view concerning the educational aspect, economic or political, not forgetting the health aspect that is plaguing our country, Africa and the entire world. With us here in the studio, we have Asabo Rachel. She is a teacher. Good evening to you, Mrs. Rachel, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Mrs. Vanessa. It's a pleasure for me to be here today.
Manga Venashus, good evening to you.
Good evening, Vanessa, and good evening to our viewers.
In a moment, let us have a transition and we will be right back for the first part of the show. Welcome back. Question number 1. Is the educational community capable of respecting restrictive measures to fight the coronavirus? I begin with you, Mrs. Rachel. Yes or no?
No.
No. Manga Venashus?
Yes, Vanessa.
Yes. Question number 2. Given the long period at home, are the students and pupils psychologically prepared for official exams? I begin with you, Mrs. Rachel. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Manga Venashus?
No, Vanessa.
No. Question number 3. Is it proper for every health structure to handle the coronavirus patients? Manga Venashus?
No, it is not.
No. And what of you, Mrs. Rachel?
Yes, Mrs. Vanessa.
And our last question for today. Is the reconstruction plan for the Northwest and the Southwest regions adopted for a period of 1 year realistic? I begin with you, Mrs. Rachel.
No, Mrs. Vanessa.
It is not. Manga Venashus, what do you say about that?
No, it is not realistic.
No, it is not realistic. All right, up for the debate. In our first question, we seek to find out if the educational community is capable of respecting restrictive measures to fight the coronavirus. And to you, Mrs. Rachel, you said no, they are not capable of fighting the coronavirus. Why do you think so?
Thank you, Miss Vanessa, for bringing me back to that question. I said no because it is very, very impossible. I'm talking from my own point or my own sector of the educational sector, which is the nursery. Those children that are still very tender, they can't really stick to the measures. For example, you can tell a child not to do this, like not to touch the friend or not to play with this and this object, or after you've played with your friend, go and wash your hands. I'm not saying that the instruction we are giving to them as teachers is not going through. That is, I'm talking on the teaching methods and techniques. They are going through, but they are still very small. They can't really follow the instructions. They will follow now and later they will change. So children, they are unstable.
They're unstable.
Yeah.
What of the students?
For the students, that is why I said I will talk from my own sector,
own sector.
Yeah.
All right, Manga Venashus, you rather think that the educational community is capable of restricting the various barriers, measures in order to counteract the coronavirus?
And actually, I was speaking from the point of view of at least the higher sector. Like she says, she's speaking from the point of view of the nursery sector. You know, in the secondary school, it is we have students who are already aware of the consequences of this virus. And this education community, generally, we are not talking of all the students. We are talking of proprietors, the infrastructure. And when you look at the measures that the government gave out with the Prime Minister's, instructions of recently, he was saying that only those in the examination classes are going back to school. They will resume on the 1st of June. Now, once they resume on the 1st of June, it is obvious. The instruction that was attached to that announcement was they should be shared into groups of 50. or lesser than 50. Now we have classes that maybe were more than 50 students. So it's possible now for these schools, since the intermediate classes will no longer be, they will have the infrastructure, they will have the halls, the benches. They will then share them out and to make sure that the 1 meter distance is respected. Because if we have to talk of 1 meter distance to be respected, it will not be possible to talk of 50 people per group, because we cannot have a hall where 50 students can enter, 50 people can enter, and they still respect the 1 meter distance. So it's possible that we may have around 10, 15 in a class if we are talking of respecting the barrier measures. So it's possible that that will be done. But the problem lies only on the will. It lies on the will of the proprietors, because in as much as we are distributing these students and pupils into classes, it would need the presence of other teachers. It will need the presence of teachers to handle them in these subclasses that will be distributed. But the problem we have is, we know for these 2 months, some schools have not been paying the teachers. And when we come back now, most of these proprietors would have taken advantages of the fact that since schools are not going, they don't need the teachers again. So they won't pay them. So are we saying that this will be an extra, charge on the proprietors, because if the teachers have to come back to occupy these classes, they will need to pay them? How many of them will really do it? So I think we need a kind of follow-up. I will still insist on this word. We need a kind of follow-up from the part of the administration to make sure that these schools can do it, but if we follow them up, they will respect them, because if it is compulsory, if we give 30, we will not be able to, 30 persons, students per class, we will not respect the 1 meter distance. It is not possible. Given our class sizes that we have. In a city like Douala, that most classes, I doubt how many classes we have up to 25 meter squares per hall. So in that case, we will have at most 25 students per class. And in that 25 students per class, a class that has 75, there are some classes we have A and B. There are some classes A, B, and even C. Yes, in such classes now, we will have to divide them now into various groups, and teachers will have to come in. So the state needs to come in and make sure that those teachers working are paid. It's not a question of paid half salary, because some schools even went as far as paying 50%.
Owners should be pressured in order to pay their teachers.
They should follow up to make sure that they make maximum use of the staff that they have, so as to respect the 1 meter distance. Because if they don't make the maximum use, Vanessa, I bet you, the proprietors. I say proprietors will want to cram the students to make sure that they say that the government said 50, so that we cram them 50 in a class. 50 in a class.
Especially in the private sector.
Especially in the private sector. That's where the problem is.
All right, so you're supporting the fact?
Yes. 50 in the private sector, they will not be able to respect those. Yes,
I'm
madam.
supporting the fact. It's not that I'm like on his side. I'm supporting the fact that with the private sector, they don't really cater for their teachers.
Yes.
Since the government say, it will be just for the examination classes, they'll say, okay, 50. And they'll only use the examination classes teachers, which will be very impossible. That's why I still stand on the point that it will not be possible.
It will not be possible for these schools to respect them. All right. Thank you very much for clarifying us on your point of views on the viewpoints. Our second question, given the long period at home, are the students and people psychologically prepared for official exams? Mrs. Rachel, now they've been home for over 1 month, 2 weeks, and officially now we all know that exam students are to resume on the 1st of June in order to prepare for the official end of year exam. So do you think that psychologically, morally, are they prepared for this?
Yeah, they are prepared.
What makes you think they're prepared?
Because they started, it is not the beginning of the academic year. I should take, for example, a child was in class 5 last year, and this academic year the child is in class 6. That child leaving class 5 to class 6 knew that he or she will be sitting for an exam. So the child was psychologically prepared ever since before the outbreak of this pandemic.
All right.
Yeah.
So you think they are prepared?
They are prepared.
All right. Manga Venashus, you rather think that psychologically these students are not prepared. It is normal, or it is true that some TV stations have been carrying out online studies in order to help them like rehearse their lessons in order to help them prepare for these exams. But looking at the behaviors of these children back at home, in the market where we find them on the streets, could we say that they are prepared for the exams? And you say no, they are not psychologically prepared for it.
Vanessa, these are human beings, and we all passed through that stage. You know, when examination is coming, you have your mind focused that we are going to write an exam, and every other student, when that time starts approaching, you find yourself, you know, reading more than usual. That steam started right from first term. They were building them up for examination. The apex was to come this third term, and around March, I think it was around March 17.
17 March.
Yes,
yeah.
the Prime Minister announced that classes will be suspended. From March 17, we have the whole month of April, the whole month of May. These children were at home. Every human being, and being at home, they were still skeptical whether we will go back, whether we will not go back. That enthusiasm that we had created in them died down within these 2 months. Because you will not tell me, when we talk of online courses, Vanessa, it was just a slogan. I will call it a slogan because we just wanted to let it be that the students are studying. Because even sitting in the house and studying, I doubt how many will study. Yesterday, I was talking with one of the teachers yesterday, and he was telling me that they have, in their own situation, they have created a group in which each student logs in, but the turnout is very poor. Today, participant A would log in, and tomorrow he will not log in. Today, another problem was the problem of network. It was very poor, very slow, that you don't communicate with the students at the same time. Yes, the students don't ask questions. That's real-time communication did not exist. But then the problem is follow-up was not there in that during those online courses, and that is why I was saying that psychologically the students were like defeated. Yeah, defeated. Yes, they did not. They did not feel that. They did not feel that urge, that need, to study. Because how many parents at home did ask their children to sit down and focus on television? We are talking for the cases of those who were in the towns where they could have access to such courses. I think of those who are in the village, they don't even receive CRTV. How would they study? Because it was possible that online courses were practically going on, but in a state television. Some private media televisions like Dbs did it, but then it was not tied down to the school syllabus. Yes, it was simple reawakening them, making sure that their minds, that they keep themselves awake. But once you know that they are doing what is not concerned in your program, the attention there is not the same. That is why there is this conventional form of learning where students have to go and sit in class and study. Once you are within the forum of a classroom, once you are within a normal classroom setting, your mind naturally prepares you for an examination. But once you are at home, you don't know those who were dozing off, you don't know those who were distracted, you don't know those who you cannot be sitting and watching at TV, they are cooking in the house there, you are thinking of all these kind of things. It had to bring down their morale, and that is why we think that they are not psychologically prepared. But we pray. With the announcement that was made recently by the Prime Minister, we hope that they will gather their spirit, and that the teachers, once they will use, because they say exams begin, it will be written around June, July, something like that.
July?
Yes.
July, I think.
July. To August.
Correct. So for the 1 month that they will be in school, we hope that the teachers will be able, God bless them, to have that spirit to rekindle in these children. Yes, that zeal to write again, because if we are not careful, the education in Cameroon may register, one of the lowest turnout this academic year, Vanessa.
All right, thank you for your point. Mrs. Rachel, let us enter now into this health crisis, that is the coronavirus pandemic that is plaguing the entire world, and looking at the case in Cameroon, and we are asking whether is it proper for any health structure to take care of coronavirus patients. Recently in Douala, we heard of the clinic Marie O, that what happened there, how the citizens, they went into protest to get their cups, refusing to accept the fact that their patient died of coronavirus, and now the clinic has been sealed off. So you said no, it is not proper for every structure to handle these patients.
Was it yes or no?
Yes, you said no.
Yeah. I said no because most of our private hospitals are not well equipped. They are not well equipped. So I don't see it in any way how a private hospital can cater for this coronavirus virus patients, given the rate at which the thing is like increasing in the world, not only in Cameroon or in Africa, in the world at large.
All right.
Yeah.
So you think so? Then what more of these particular health structures that are well equipped, or if actually the government could empower them to take care of these patients, can they not?
Come again?
I'm asking, what if they were well equipped to handle these coronavirus patients? Or is it just of the fact that they are not well equipped?
It's just of the fact that they are not well equipped and they don't have the necessary facilities. Yeah. Because if they are being given the necessary facilities to carry on, I think it will be a very good thing, because if I can remember well, there are just some few hospitals which have been cited out by the government to like take care of this coronavirus patients. But when I look into those hospitals, I believe they are small. So if each clinic or private hospital, or both the private and the government, if all of them work hand in hand to fight this pandemic which is outside, it will be something wonderful.
Market Shoes, you think that is not proper for every health structure to handle coronavirus patients?
Yes, I share the same view like she was saying. If we look at the characteristic of this virus, it is strange to everybody, even to those in the medical field. And that is why, like she said, the government decided to isolate some kind of hospital, to identify some hospitals to particularly handle this. Because besides coronavirus, other illnesses are still there. People are still sick of malaria. People are still sick of all this. If we have to bring in and then they say the contagion is so high.
It's so high.
Yes. If we just simply say that any health center can handle it, any health facility can handle it, they would not be able. Remember, we are talking of isolating these patients. They won't have the facilities, like she said, to take care of this patient. Two, they know how. How many of these health centers have sufficient staffing that could handle them? Because you need to be, it's not every medical personnel who should handle this kind of a virus. Two, we are talking of, it still falls in the same line with facilities, health equipment that these health centers have, personal protective equipment. Not all health centers can have them. If the government finds it difficult to have them, then what more of private hospitals that we'll talk of?
Yeah.
Ventilators. How many ventilators do we have in Cameroon? How many specialized ambulances do we have in Cameroon that private sectors could have? So it is not possible that we can say that every health center could handle this. If we try that, then we want to look for a way where this virus can contaminate as much people as possible. Vanessa, there's this issue of stigmatization that we have in our society when it comes to COVID-19. Once they say that this particular health center or a hospital is handling COVID-19 patients, nobody passes there again, because we just know that once you come there, you will get COVID-19. It was the same case that happened here in Lokbaba, and Lokbaba was empty without a patient for more than 2 weeks, because people were just afraid.
But looking at the atmosphere generally now, Cameroonians hardly do go to the hospital.
Because they just know that if I go to the hospital, I'll have coronavirus. And another issue of stigmatization is the situation where you go to the hospital, even you have a headache now, it's coronavirus. If you have high temperature, it's coronavirus. But medics tell us that it is a combination of a number of factors put together that make it is not possible that you are suffering from, that you have a high temperature, that you have a nose flu, that you have that is coronavirus. It must be a combination of these factors put together that they conclude that, okay, we should isolate you before carrying out the test.
And listening to some experts on the national TV station, they clearly make sure that you could even have all the symptoms.
And it is not coronavirus. We are in a period of transition, climatic transition, yes, from the dry season to the rainy season. And in this during this period, we always suffer from headache, we always suffer from catarrh, cough, fever. Yes, and these are clear symptoms of coronavirus. No, because when you just have them and they go to the hospital, especially with those who are a bit older, those of the third generation. Once you have that, it's coronavirus. So people prefer now to die at home. They don't go to the hospital. So it's preferable, like the state did, to identify particular hospitals that are specialized in handling this virus in such a way that Once they know that this is your occupation, they can control them very well. In developed countries, Vanessa, nurses and doctors who work in this hospital, they are also isolated. You don't go back to your house because you may take the virus back to your community, back to your family. So once you are there, you are isolated for a particular number of time, and before you change round, they isolate you again for 2 weeks to make sure that you are not developing the virus, and then after that, you can go back to your community. If we start that in Africa, in Cameroon, are you sure we're going to survive?
So,
in our health centers?
then what more of these healthcare services that take upon themselves to tax citizens exorbitant prices or checks for treatment for COVID-19 patients?
That is a risk, and that is why the Minister of Public Health decided to sanction this pharmacy, this health center in Douala by closing it. It is not of their own, they are not supposed to do it. Because if the government tells us, except I'm proven otherwise, except I'm proven wrong, if the government tells us that the test for coronavirus is free, the handling of patient is free, that is what the government said. Remember, the head of state donated 500,000 rapid testing kits. Do you think that he was giving them that they should pay before carrying out the test? It was because the government is looking forward to making this thing completely available to simple Cameroonians. And then when an individual decides to do like what this health center did, I think it is just normal for the government to come in and regulate the sector, like the Minister of Public Health came in and closed and sealed that health center. That is just the normal way, because when you take it upon yourself, you abuse the way the health the virus is being managed. Remember, they tell us that it cost that is exorbitant amount to handle the patient just for 1 week. For 1 week. Yes, and then the treatment can last for 1 month. So individuals cannot handle it. That's why the state comes in to subsidize, to even bear the cost, to bear the entire cost of treating the patient. So an individual cannot handle it. It is supposed to be something that is within the ambit of the government, Vanessa.
All right, our last question for today. We are entering the northwest and the southwest regions, where we are asking whether the reconstruction plan of these two regions adopted for a period of 1 year is realistic. Mrs. Rachel, I continue with you. Now, about 36 billion francs have been set aside for this reconstruction budget, and it's within the period of 1 year. Given that the crisis is still ongoing, do you see that will it be applicable?
No, Madam Vanessa. I said no. It's a big no. It is a big no. Because how? When you look even at the time given, 1 year, it's just like a country that wants to be rebuilt. So when you just take that particular example, how can it be possible for a country to be rebuilt within a year?
And given that,
not to talk of the fact that the crisis is still ongoing, it is very, very impossible.
All right.
And something like construction needs to have different departments. I don't think it's not as if I'm being a politician here, or I'm like looking at the nature of the country.
It's your point of view.
Each department has to sit down, draft something, and it starts going up. So when I look that period of a year for the reconstruction of the northwest and the southwest, which is like a country, I'm not saying that it is a country, but it is like a country, because when I look of a country like Equatorial Guinea, I think Equatorial Guinea is just
like
Douala. Like Douala. So it is a big no.
It's a big no.
Yeah.
The frame time of 1 year is impossible. And Margaret Venatius, you think that is not possible? When we talk of reconstructions, very often televiewers or a lot of Cameroonians we think that it has to do only with the physical infrastructure, talk less of the psychological, of the moral. Within a period of 1 year, the crisis is still ongoing.
Even Vanessa, as we are speaking, the crisis is ongoing. As we are speaking, villages are still being destroyed. Homes are still being burnt down. I hope the amount that was, adopted, around 36 billion, had to consider that before they get into the project, the other destruction.
It's set to begin this May.
It's beginning this May. We already halfway gone into the month of May. So the problem is we cannot construct something that is still, because for now we cannot determine the gravity of the situation in the northwest and southwest region, because the crisis is still ongoing. The crisis would have stopped then we weigh out to find out how serious the destruction was, and then see within the gravity of the destruction, how long can it take to reconstruct. When the steering committee sat and decided that it would take place between the month of May and the month of May 2020, yes, and 2021,
May 2021,
that's 1 year precisely.
Yeah.
I don't know whether a crisis that had gone on for close to 3 years, within 1 year they will reconstruct. We are talking about the condition if it had ended. They were still living in a situation where the crisis has not ended, the crisis is still ongoing, and if the crisis is still ongoing, then how do we expect to construct it within 1 year? So the problem here is that let us call for a ceasefire, like they say, and then come back on the table and see how we can assess how far the crisis has gone. Yes, then we can we assess how far the crisis has gone. Then we can go back to the drawing table and say, okay, it needs this amount. It can take this time frame to construct. But then we are talking of reconstructing the northwest and southwest region. Like I said, it's not only reconstructing the physical, not building the houses, building the infrastructure. We need to build the people psychologically, I still insist, because these people were touched from their psychology as well. Yeah. Imagine somebody who was already living in the bush, and then they just suddenly say, come back to your village. It's not possible. In the northwest and southwest, people don't sleep at ease, because at any moment you can have crossfire between the military and the separatist fighters. That is why each time you are sleeping and any noise, people go down to the floor. We were loving, they say one child came to Douala here and was watching a television, and when he got the sound of a gun, the child had to lie down. It is already in their psychology. Okay. So we need to work on their psychology first, soften their psychology, bring them back to normal life. Then we're talking of reconstruction. And I don't know whether we're talking within this 1 year that the steering committee came up with was reconstructing them psychologically and doing the infrastructural construction in these two regions. That would be something that I don't think that within 2 years even we will be able to do it. So I think that it is not realistic to do that within 1 year period. They need to, I was saying that we need to give the president the reality on the ground. The crisis is still ongoing. Let us call for a ceasefire, and so that it could also permit even the members of this reconstruction team to go to the field. What are we constructing? Have they gone to the various villages to measure the structures that were destroyed?
Yeah.
So how much can we come out with the budget and the time frame to construct what they themselves? They have not even gone there. Can we say the reconstruction team, have they gone to Batibo? Have they gone to Kumbu? Have they gone to Nyaso? So have they gone to Mamfe? The crisis is still ongoing. So it is not realistic to take 1 year and do the construction.
All right. Thank you very much, Mange Venashus, for being part of us tonight.
Thank you, madam.
One word to our televiewers before we go.
If we are just to say something, we keep insisting on the respecting the barrier measures to curb the spread of coronavirus, because coronavirus is real and it is only you and I who can fight it. There's nothing like the government. Once they're talking of respecting barrier measures, putting on of a face mask, it should be part and parcel of us. Somebody said there are already accessories that we need to be moving about, like handbags that women move on, so we don't have to neglect them. If we respect them, then we'll be able to kick out coronavirus, Vanessa. All
right, Mrs. Sobo Rashad, you are a teacher. One advice to the educational community.
Thank you, Miss Vanessa. What I would like to give as a piece of advice to the educational community is that they should work hand in hand with the health sector of the country, because regarding this pandemic, they have to be working towards the success or the elimination of the pandemic. If they don't do that, it will be something very, very disastrous.
Thank you very much for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of today's edition. It has been a pleasure having you back at home. Make sure that you respect all the barriers. Until we meet again, do take care and stay blessed in the company of DBS Television. Bye-bye.